Manipulation is a sly psychological manipulation, difficult to notice but exceedingly strong. Manipulators are not necessarily aggressive in an obvious sense. They will rely on charm, guilt-tripping, passive aggressiveness, or even feigned vulnerability to lead others into furthering their own covert agendas. Niccolò Machiavelli, Renaissance philosopher and author of The Prince, remains one of the foremost quoted individuals concerning understanding the nature of manipulation as well as of power. This paper considers 9 genius techniques for countering manipulators, with both modern psychological strategies as well as Machiavellian identification techniques. Understanding manipulation and taking intentional responses enables individuals to reclaim control, retain autonomy, and disable even skillful operators. Regardless of whether you've ever survived manipulation at your workplace, in a relationship, or on social media, learning to recognize it and resist it is not only a survival mechanism, it's a liberating life skill. Machiavelli did not write books about manipulation, he uncovered its code. Let's subject his keen-eyed scrutiny to what its signs look like as well as its tactics you can use to guard yourself and counterattack. 1. Recognize the manipulator's mask. Machiavellian tactic: appear virtuous. Manipulators rarely reveal their true intentions up front. Instead, they hide behind carefully constructed facades. They might come off as overly generous, humble, or even self-sacrificing. But these traits can often be part of a performance designed to build trust and lower your defenses. This mask is their tool of choice, allowing them to gain influence without drawing suspicion. In the early stages of an interaction, especially when someone seems too agreeable or gives unsolicited praise, it's worth asking, what's their motivation? Niccolò Machiavelli famously stated that a ruler must appear to be virtuous, but not necessarily be virtuous. In The Prince, he emphasized that perception is more powerful than reality, especially when seeking influence. Manipulators adopt this same strategy by crafting an image that suits their goal, whether it's the trustworthy coworker, the charming date, or the selfless friend. The key isn't sincerity, it's optics. The moment their mask no longer serves them, their true behavior begins to leak out. To outsmart this, develop the habit of watching for inconsistencies. Pay close attention to how someone behaves under pressure or when they're not getting what they want. Does the kind, caring friend turn cold or spiteful when denied a favor? Does the humble colleague suddenly brag when an opportunity for recognition appears? By observing the contrast between image and behavior, you'll begin to see the cracks in the mask, often before it fully slips. Trust is earned over time through consistent action, not performance. 2. Spot guilt-tripping. Machiavellian tactic: leverage emotional debt. Guilt is a weapon disguised as emotional concern. Manipulators skillfully use guilt-tripping to make you feel responsible for their happiness, stress, or even failures. Phrases like "I guess you're too busy for me now," or "after all I've done for you," are subtle attempts to make you feel indebted. Once that guilt settles in, you're more likely to say yes, even when you want to say no. Manipulators thrive on this imbalance, where your sense of empathy becomes their tool for control. From a Machiavellian standpoint, guilt-tripping aligns with the idea of emotional debt as leverage. Machiavelli believed in using whatever means necessary to secure loyalty and obedience, including emotional manipulation. In modern relationships, whether personal or professional, people who use guilt do so to place themselves in the role of the victim, making it hard for you to assert boundaries without appearing cruel or selfish. This illusion of moral high ground is carefully manufactured. To fight back, You need to distinguish between true accountability and false guilt. Ask yourself, have I actually wronged this person, or are they framing a situation to manipulate my reaction? Reframing guilt as a signal, not a directive, allows you to assess it objectively. Respond with neutral, grounded statements like, I understand how you feel, but this decision is what's best for me right now. Remember, you're not responsible for managing someone else's emotional state at the expense of your own well-being. 3. Identify love bombing and excessive praise. Machiavellian tactic: use flattery to disarm. One of the most disarming forms of manipulation is love bombing, a tactic where a person showers you with praise, attention, and affection to build rapid emotional attachment. This creates a sense of connection that feels special, almost surreal. But once you're emotionally hooked, the tone shifts. The praise turns to demands, the adoration becomes expectation. Manipulators use this initial flattery as bait, pulling you in just enough to start exploiting your loyalty. Machiavelli warned rulers to use flattery sparingly and strategically, not as genuine affection, but as a means of controlling others' perception. A flatterer, he claimed, could either be a useful tool or a dangerous threat, depending on how the person being flattered responds. In this context, manipulators act like Machiavellian rulers. They create the illusion of affection to disarm your judgment. Once you're convinced of their admiration, you're less likely to challenge them. To outsmart this, ground yourself in self-awareness. Ask, am I reacting to how I feel, or how I want to feel? Flattery can be intoxicating, but it's not always sincere. Watch for inconsistency. Someone who praises you endlessly but is quick to withdraw affection when you disagree is not supportive, they're strategic. Genuine relationships are built on mutual respect and patience, not emotional rushes. Appreciate compliments but verify character. 4. Decode passive aggression and ambiguity. Machiavellian tactic: confuse the target. Passive aggression is a manipulator's playground. Rather than confront issues directly, they resort to sarcastic comments, ambiguous statements, or subtle digs that leave you confused or self-doubting. Their goal is to keep you guessing, unsure whether you're overreacting or missing something. This uncertainty gives them control. It also protects their image. If you confront them, they can deny responsibility by saying, I was just joking, or you're too sensitive. Machiavelli valued strategic ambiguity as a form of control. By keeping others uncertain, a ruler could maintain an advantage. No one could predict his next move or intentions. Today's manipulators use the same strategy. They blur boundaries, speak in half-truths, and never say exactly what they mean. This makes it hard to challenge them without appearing irrational or confrontational. The best way to dismantle passive aggression is by calling out the fog. Use clear, calm questions like, "What did you mean by that?" Or "Could you clarify what you're saying?" This forces manipulators to step out of the shadows and into direct communication, which many of them try to avoid. By shining light on their ambiguity, you take back the power to interpret, respond, and assert yourself confidently. 5. Master emotional detachment. Machiavellian tactic: control emotions to control power. One of the manipulator's greatest strengths is their ability to provoke emotional responses. They aim to make you react, whether it's guilt, fear, anger, or anxiety, because when you react emotionally, you become easier to influence. If they can keep you in a heightened emotional state, they can distract you from logical analysis and erode your decision-making. That's when manipulation thrives, not in calm reflection, but in emotional chaos. Machiavelli argued that a wise ruler should be calculated rather than emotional. Emotions, while human and natural, were to be mastered if one wished to remain in control. He encouraged leaders to present themselves with composure, even if their inner thoughts were stormy. In the same way, to outsmart a manipulator, you must become emotionally self-aware. The goal isn't to suppress your feelings, it's to manage your reaction so you can choose your response, not just fall into one. Start by identifying emotional triggers. What phrases, tones, or behaviors make you feel instantly defensive, ashamed, or guilty? When you feel those emotions rising, pause before responding. Use grounding techniques, deep breaths, physical stillness, or a short walk away from the situation to give yourself space. Then revisit the conversation with logic and clarity. Emotional detachment doesn't mean apathy. It means controlling your internal world so that others can't do it for you. 6. Recognize gaslighting Machiavellian tactic, reframe reality. Gaslighting is one of the most dangerous forms of manipulation. It involves distorting your perception of events, memories, or emotions so thoroughly that you begin to doubt your own reality. The gaslighter might say things like, "That never happened," or "You're imagining things," even when you know your memory is accurate. Over time, this erodes your confidence and self-trust, leaving you dependent on the manipulator's version of events. Machiavelli believed that whoever controls the narrative controls the power. In a political context, that meant shaping public opinion, even if it meant using deceit. Modern manipulators follow this blueprint, subtly rewriting the truth to suit their purposes. They know that if they can make you question yourself, they don't need to argue facts, they just need you to feel unsure. Once that uncertainty is in place, they become the trusted authority in your eyes. To combat gaslighting, maintain a reality anchor. Keep written records of important conversations, text messages, emails, journal entries. Reflect on how situations made you feel in real time. If someone constantly contradicts your version of events, bring objective proof into the conversation. And most importantly, talk to trusted third parties who can provide an outside perspective. Gaslighting only works in isolation. Truth gains strength through validation and clarity. 7. Set boundaries relentlessly. Machiavellian tactic, create strategic limits. Boundaries are a manipulator's worst enemy. The moment you establish a clear line, what you will and won't tolerate, you disrupt their ability to operate freely. Manipulators often test limits subtly at first, small favors, minor criticisms, seemingly harmless requests. If you concede, they escalate. Their goal is to gradually wear down your resistance, one blurred line at a time. That's why setting and defending boundaries is one of the most effective tools for self-protection. In The Prince, Machiavelli advised rulers to be calculating with their concessions. Giving too much ground could make them appear weak and invite rebellion. Instead, limits had to be enforced with confidence and consistency. Similarly, you must communicate your boundaries with clarity and firmness. Don't soften your stance to avoid discomfort. That's often what manipulators are waiting for. A boundary is only as strong as your willingness to enforce it. You can practice this with simple phrases like, "That doesn't work for me," or "I'm not available for that." You don't owe long explanations or justifications. The more concise you are, the harder it is for manipulators to find loopholes. Expect pushback. They may accuse you of being selfish or cold. Stay grounded. Healthy people respect boundaries, manipulators resist them. Let that be your filter. 8. Watch for divide and conquer tactics. Machiavellian tactic, exploit rivalries. One of the more advanced tactics manipulators use is divide and conquer. They insert themselves between people, distorting communication and sowing distrust. For example, they might tell you that someone else spoke badly about you, then tell that same person you said something negative in return. The result? Conflict and confusion. And while everyone else is busy fighting or mistrusting one another, the manipulator stays in control. Machiavelli endorsed this tactic in statecraft. He believed that a divided population was easier to rule, since unity gave people strength. He encouraged leaders to create tension among powerful groups to prevent them from aligning against the throne. Manipulators adopt this mindset in social and workplace settings, creating chaos to elevate their own influence. They pretend to be neutral while quietly pulling strings in both camps. To neutralize this tactic, foster open communication. If you hear something concerning about another person, go directly to the source. "Hey, I heard this and wanted to check in, what's your take?" Manipulators count on secrecy and silence. By choosing transparency and dialogue, you expose the puppet strings. You also strengthen trust among your peers, making it harder for manipulation to take root. Divide and conquer fails when people stand side by side. 9. Learn to say no without explanation. Machiavellian tactic seize agency. Perhaps the simplest and most powerful tactic in your anti-manipulation toolkit is the word no. Manipulators hate it. Why? Because it represents a wall they can't climb, a boundary they can't twist. They often rely on hesitation, guilt, or confusion to get their way. But when you say no, clearly, calmly, and without explanation, you assert power over your own decisions. You stop playing their game. Machiavelli admired those who made decisive moves without apology. He believed that excessive justification weakened authority. When you over-explain, you open the door for manipulation. The other person may start poking holes in your reasoning, offering counterpoints, or guilt-tripping you into changing your mind. That's why a confident no can be a final word, not the start of a negotiation. Practice small refusals daily. Say no to unnecessary favors. Decline uncomfortable conversations. Let your silence or brevity stand. You'll quickly notice who respects your autonomy and who pushes back. Manipulators often view boundaries as negotiable. But by refusing to justify yourself, you show that your choices are rooted in self-respect, not fear. You don't owe access to anyone who hasn't earned it. Conclusion: outsmarting the manipulative mind with awareness and strategy. Manipulators thrive in confusion, chaos, and emotional imbalance. Their tactics are subtle but systematic. By wearing masks, exploiting emotion, distorting reality, and testing limits, they chip away at your sense of control. But with awareness, you can spot their moves. With confidence, you can stand your ground. And with strategy, you can dismantle their influence, piece by piece. Machiavelli's ideas weren't meant to make people cruel, they were designed to make people strategic. In studying manipulation, he gave us tools, not to manipulate others, but to protect ourselves. Whether in personal relationships, the workplace, or society at large, the ability to identify and outmaneuver manipulation is a rare and powerful strength. So remember, you don't have to play the manipulator's game, you just have to know the rules, and be wise enough not to follow them blindly.